Hey y'all, so every 6 months or so on my blog, I do a ranking of my top 15 favorite standalone novels. And since this is really the first time that I'll be doing it since starting my YouTube channel, I decided that I would go ahead and do my ranking on here instead of on my blog. And I will go ahead and link my previous posts down in the description because this ranking has changed significantly since the last time that I did it. So coming in at number 15 on the list is The Night We Said Yes by Lauren Gibaldi. The Night We Said Yes is a contemporary novel with two separate timelines. In the first timeline, these teenagers decide to have a night where they say yes to every idea that comes up. And in the second timeline, it is exactly a year later, and a lot of the relationships and friendships between these characters have a lot of problems. And they kind of work to figure out what really happened to destroy these friendships and relationships. Like I said in a few videos now, The Night We Said Yes isn't exactly a groundbreaking book, but I did think it was a really great, fun, light read. And I personally really enjoyed the pop punk and punk rock elements that were thrown in here because that is my favorite genre of music. And just as a reference point, I gave The Night We Said Yes 8.5 stars out of 10. Coming in at number 14 is 1984 by George Orwell. I don't read a ton of classics, but the classics I do tend to enjoy are mostly dystopia and mystery, and this is one of my favorite classic dystopian novels. Even though it is 31 years past 1984, the idea of the Big Brother government being able to hear your every word and being able to punish you almost immediately for a statement that contradicts what they stand for is a terrifying thought, and that is what makes this book so poignant. So yeah, this is one of my favorite classic dystopian novels as well as my favorite George Orwell novel. And once again, I gave this one 8.5 stars out of 10. Coming in at number 13 is The Fault in Our Stars. Now, in general, I am not a very big John Green fan. I've only read this one and Looking for Alaska by him, but I really did not like Looking for Alaska, and I don't have much interest in reading any of his other books. Mostly because I've heard that the characters are kind of the same, and it seems like a lot of the females in his books are like the manic pixie dream girl trope, and I am not a big fan of that at all. However, I did enjoy The Fault in Our Stars. Now, it has been a couple of years since I read it, and I have only read it once, so maybe if I were to reread it, I wouldn't enjoy it quite as much, but I did really love it when I did read it, and I gave it 8.5 stars out of 10. Coming in at number 12 is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I wasn't quite as enthralled with this one as a lot of people on BookTube seem to be, but I did still really enjoy it. And I think that the characters of Victor and Eli are some of the most interesting characters to read about, especially Victor. And I'm really not a fan of superhero movies or like superheroes in general, but I do think that Vicious plays with superheroes and supervillains and superpowers in a really interesting way, and I ended up giving it 8.5 stars out of 10. Coming in at number 11 is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Because it's been so long since I read this, I do go back and forth as to whether I prefer this or 1984, but I do have Brave New World as 9.5 stars out of 10 on Goodreads, and I have 1984 as 8.5, so I went by that, but I kind of just go back and forth as to which one I prefer. Like I said with 1984, I really enjoy classic dystopia, and this is no exception. And like I said, I gave Brave New World 9.5 stars out of 10. And now we crack into the top 10 with This Is Your Brain on Music by Daniel Levitin. Now, I haven't talked about this much, if at all, on my channel, but for about 2 years of college, I was a bridge major between music and psychology before switching exclusively to music, and I took a class called The Psychology of Music, and I had to read this book for that class. And both that class and this book were really what got me interested in the way that music affects your mind, and even though I am not a bridge major anymore, the psychology of music is still something that really interests me. And I just really like the way that in this book, Daniel Levitin talks about the effects that music can have on the brain. And I gave This Is Your Brain on Music 9.5 stars out of 10. Coming in at number 9 is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. And I've talked about this book a lot recently on my channel, so I won't really harp on it. I will just say how immersive this book is and how interesting and intriguing of a crime/murder mystery novel that this is. This book messes with your mind in so many ways, and it's just a very creepy, very immersive read, and I gave it 9.5 stars out of 10. Coming in at number 8 is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I don't talk about Fangirl that much, but I am basically Kath. Like when I came to college, I sat in my dorm room for the first like 3 weeks of school. I did nothing as far as socializing. I would, blog. I definitely wrote Harry Potter fan fiction. And I just really connected with Kath in this book. Fangirl is just a really cute contemporary novel that I connected to immediately because the main character is an introverted homebody of a college student, and that is essentially me. And I gave Fangirl 9.5 stars out of 10. Coming in at number 7 is The Body Electric by Beth Revis. I've talked a lot about this one as well. This one is a fairly unknown novel by Beth Revis, who, as I've mentioned, is one of my favorite authors. She writes some really fantastic sci-fi dystopian novels, and this is one of them. Beth Revis just has a writing style that I really love, and she has some of the best world building I have read in YA novels. I really love this book. I really love Beth Revis. 9.5 stars out of 10. Amazing standalone that is super unknown. Number 6 is All American Girl by Meg Cabot. I first read this book like 10 years ago, maybe more, and it has just been a long-standing favorite. All American Girl is a contemporary novel about a 15-year-old girl named Sam who is kind of alternative and artsy, and she's kind of the black sheep of her family. And she is thrust into the spotlight when she saves the president's life. I really love Sam as a character. I really enjoy her voice. And she does these like top 10 lists throughout the book that are also lots of fun. I just have loved this book for a very long time, and it will probably be among my favorites for a very long time. And I can't remember if I gave All American Girl 9.5 stars out of 10 or 10 stars out of 10, but just know that this is a book that I really, really love. And now we break into the top 5 with Unsaid Things Our Story by McFly. As I've said many times, McFly is my favorite band, and this is their autobiography that they put out in 2012, and I really love it. I mean, what can I say? It's my favorite band, and I love them. It made me laugh and cry, and it surprised me with some of the crazy stuff that went down in the early days of the band. But I mean, I really just can't give a book that is co-written by Tom Fletcher anything less than 10 out of 10 stars. Coming in at number 4 is a very recent addition to this list, and that is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I read this during the Booktubeathon this year, and I just fell in love with this. This is a really beautiful contemporary novel about family and about relationships, and it's just so wonderful. The two main characters in I'll Give You the Sun are twins named Jude and Noah, and they each tell their individual stories, but they tell them in 2 separate timelines. So Noah starts when the twins are 13, and Jude starts when the twins are 16. And Jude and Noah used to be very close, but between the 2 storylines that they tell, their relationship has really disintegrated, and they don't really know why. I just love the way that this book weaves together the 2 different storylines and all of the subplots within it. And I really love that each character has a very individual voice. Like, I never got Noah or Jude confused with each other. They have very individual voices, which I really appreciated. It's just a wonderful book. I loved it so much. 10 out of 10 stars. Coming in at number 3 is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I read this about a year ago and absolutely fell in love. I love the 80s. I love video games. I love dystopian novels. I think virtual reality is like the coolest thing ever. This was just amazing. Once I reread this and the book that's at number 2, I might flip-flop the 2 of them, but currently this one is at number 3, and honestly, that's not that different from 2 or 1. All 3 of the top slots are really amazing books. I love this book so much. Coming in at number 2 is 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. 13 Reasons Why has been a favorite since high school. I've read it countless times. I have sobbed every single time I've read it. It's just an amazing book. If you didn't know, in this book, a girl named Hannah commits suicide, and she sends out these tapes that essentially are sent to 13 people that she says are the reason that she committed suicide. And we see from the point of view of a kid named Clay who receives the tapes and is very confused as to why he is somewhat to blame for her suicide. And so you kind of just see Clay going through the tapes and figuring out all of these secrets, and it's just a heartbreaking novel, and I just love it so much. Obviously, 10 out of 10 stars. And finally, we have come to number 1, which should be no surprise if you have been on my channel for any length of time, and that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is one of my favorite authors, and this is just my favorite standalone book. The first time I read this, I fell in love with it, and I continue to fall in love with it over and over again. Every single time I read it, I've read it probably 20 times at this point. There was one day I read it 2 or 3 times in the same day. I just love this book so much. And the fact that this is a mystery novel where you're trying to figure out what is going on, and that I've read it multiple times in one day, says so much about how amazing this book is. Seriously, this is an amazingly crafted mystery, and it is so great. It's not a long book, it's not a dense read. The writing style is super easy to read even though it was written almost 100 years ago. It's just so wonderful, and I would recommend this book to every living human being ever. So that is it for my top 15 standalone books of all time. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing these every 6 months, mostly because all of the books I've just listed are ones that I really enjoyed, and I'm not sure that the list is going to change up very much in the next few months, especially because I'm going to be reading a lot of series. So I don't know, you can expect to see these more on my channel in the future, but maybe not every 6 months as I've been doing in the past. Links will be down in the description to any reviews I've done on these books that I talked about, and like I said at the beginning, any of the posts that I've done previous to this one talking about my favorite standalone novels. And I will soon be doing a top 10 or 15 favorite series of all time video, so be on the lookout for that. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!